Hello all, and welcome to um, our low-code Campfire Friday. And we are on iteration 65 of the low-code Campfire now. And just wanted to welcome everybody. And of course, as you can tell, I'm not Dale. I'm here standing in for Dale briefly until he joins the call. So moving along here.
Good morning, Patrick.
Good morning. So the low-code Campfire is, of course, our venue for coming in and asking questions and sharing with others in the community so that we can all help each other out. So we encourage you to bring something to share with everybody and be ready to help others with ideas and suggestions. You can always, all of our sessions are recorded and we post them on YouTube within a few days after the meeting, and you can access all of that content on YouTube. We encourage you to subscribe to our channel on YouTube, and you can do that by scanning this QR code here. And so our agenda is pretty much the same each time. We'll go through and have some introductions, and then we'll have a first call to see if anybody wants to jump right in and get some help or share something. And then we'll take a look and see if there's contributions to the Campfire website. We'll check out the feature requests on the community site. I don't think we have any submitted topics today. And then one of our segments is Ghost Stories, where we can share some mysterious issue that we had that we solved, and we want to let everybody know what worked out there. And then at the end of the call, once all the topics are covered, we end the recording, and then we hang out for a little while to have an open discussion where you don't have to think about the fact you're being recorded at all. So please jump in, share things with everybody. Use the chat window if you want to ask questions and don't want to speak, or you can raise your hand or unmute yourself. This is a fully open call. We're not restricting anything here. If you just do make sure that you have yourself muted if there's a lot of noise going on in the background, and be courteous to everybody. Those are our only rules here. So you can submit questions and topics ahead of time. You can scan this QR code here to do that. And with that, I will move into our introductions. And if we have anybody new on the call, please feel free to jump in. So Mr. Warner, would you share with us who you are and what brings you to our call today?
Hi, I'm Dale Warner. It says I'm Plantanap, but I'm really Dale Warner. I'll change my name here in a second, but good morning, everyone.
Morning, Dale. Good morning, Patrick.
Good morning.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning. Looks like it's we have regulars here on the call. Mark, I just want to, I don't know if you noticed or not, but I want to apologize for briefly changing your name to Patrick Anderson earlier. Evidently, I clicked on the wrong item there when I went to change my name.
That would have been a promotion. Thank you.
I didn't even know that was possible.
Evidently, I guess the host can change anybody's name if they want to.
So another reason to be nice.
Yeah. We promise not to change anybody's names to anything that they wouldn't like. I'll Mark, if you want, I can change your name to Genius.
That's funny. Thank you.
All right. Well, let's move along in our agenda here and just jump right in for a first call. Does anybody have anything they want to share or anything they need support with?
Well, I don't know if I need support, but I will tell you we provide support. The live help has been going on, and we've been getting good participation from that. And hopefully every now and then we stumble on a right answer, but don't forget that live help is available as an option from the top of community.plantanap.com. We're offering those 3 times a week now.
Yes, we
I
have
would-
very.
Well,
Go ahead, Kim.
a quick update, actually, because you took advantage of the help yesterday, and although we didn't get it solved right then and there, some ideas bubbled to the surface, and I was able to get the issue that I was working on. I've got a prototype right now. Hopefully, in the next 24 hours or so, I'll have it actually working in my project. So, thank you.
Oh, excellent. That's good. Whenever you're ready, share what your final solution was. It'd be great.
Sure, no problem.
Yeah. Cool.
Matt was dealing with, we've done drag and drop from listings before where you can move things around, and it's a really great solution based on what some stuff that Jerry Maddox had contributed. But he was taking it to the next level, doing a 2-level sort, and it was a little bit of a head scratcher. But if nothing else, we made some suggestions, maybe hopefully helped think about things in a different way. So yeah, that's a good one. Glad that it was of help.
Yeah, the ultimate resolution will probably take the form of a combination of CTEs and a temp table. So
Yep. Very good.
Cool. Anybody else? Okay. Let's see. So I think this is left over from last week, but yeah, but we had we covered all triggers again on Wednesday, and had an intensive session looking into creating custom triggers. I don't know if anybody was able to join, or if that how they felt about that. Was it useful information? Dale, did you have any?
Yeah, I
comments
was just going to say, I mean, I really hope that what Bogdan was working on with a file watcher, I'd love to see that make it into the product. It seems like a nice enhancement, and you know, so a trigger that would be relatively potentially wide use, or nice to have available. But then I've said before, I'm not a pro coder. Seeing that process and how it goes, I mean, yeah, I get it that it's somebody that understands that world. I think it's probably it's very cool that we can extend the product basically dynamically, build a new DLL, and it kind of magically does more than it used to. So having that ability to bolt on more things and to make it easier for us slow coders is, I think, very cool.
Definitely.
I think it's really cool too to see it being done, because even though it's going so quick that you can't learn it in that same time, being able to go back to that video and watch and go, okay, let's see, this is where the directory he went to add in those things. This is where, and get the bootstrap when, you know, boot start when you're getting ready to do something like that. It's very helpful.
Yeah, and hopefully the table of contents that we try to do for every video will help with that very thing, for you to, you know, be able to get where you need to go in the video.
I think that one would probably be a very good resource for somebody who was going to code their own trigger. We are planning a follow-up one at some point that would be, excuse me, a start from blank slate Visual Studio to Bogdan kind of started in the middle to show all the pieces and get something functional within an hour. But we have some more follow-ups that really come in front of that for somebody who's starting out in pro coding. So that's on the list.
Excellent. Cool. So Dale, are there any new contributions on the Campfire website this week?
No, just took a look over there. There's nothing new over there. As a reminder, anybody that's on the call that's not already part of Low Code Campfire, this is a shared site that we use to put content in, build things that are then reusable. So sharing small bits of content that, because you have access to it and see it within a site, you can open it up and see exactly how it works, maybe adapt somebody else's or use directly somebody else's ideas. So very cool things over there. But if anybody's not part of that, send me we'll put your email here on the chat and we'll make sure to get you added. Good.
So if one of the recent hot fixes made a change to the way you would implement one of those, is it okay to add notes to somebody else's contribution? Or
I think well, so first of all, I will mention that in the within the contributions page, let me borrow, I'm going to grab this for a second from you, Patrick.
Sure, yeah, we have a comments area, right?
Yeah, so within the contributions itself, there's a contribution comment, and we have a few that have comments, but I'll just if you were to add a comment to somebody's contribution, they're going to get notified by email that it happened. So if you feel like it's something that you'd like them to be aware of, you can add it there. But I don't think anybody would mind if you add notes to something or added HTML to it. It's probably best to, if it's a complete change to the thing, to try and work directly with the original contributor or make your own. But,
and that's where I was going. I didn't know if I should reach out to Jim Everett, because his contribution was quite helpful to me. But then the hot fix that now lets you put a style on a button,
oh yeah,
lets you target that, simplified the implementation a little bit. So I wanted.
Typical, isn't it? You spend all that time trying to fix a difficult problem, and then it suddenly becomes simple again.
No, I spent more time understanding your code, than it took me to actually implement it once they put the hot fix in.
Yeah, about right. Yeah, I think if it's now obsolete, I'm not sure how the editing rights work, but I wouldn't have a problem with. There's no reason to keep the old implementation, because well, I suppose that there's an argument for keeping the old version and say this is superseded in whatever hotfix, because I know there are people who continue to run fairly old versions. So
good point.
Probably the thing to do would be, well, I can go in and edit and say this has been superseded, but what I did was I created a new contribution by copying the assets over from an existing one. But I'm happy to make a new version that's simpler. Or if you want to go ahead, Jim, and pick up the bits and create a contribution with the simplified version.
Well, I'll add a comment, because yours still does more than if you do it vanilla out of the box, because yours highlights the entire row. I'm looking at contribution 33. Yours highlights the row and everything like that, which is really cool. Before it, and then it clicks the button. So what's easier now is the button click, because you don't have to do as much searching. So.
Yeah. If you put a note in there, and I'll make the updates and maybe make a new version for people who are managing to keep up to date.
Thanks.
Ooh. Yeah, so for anyone who missed it, we added a feature where, let's see if I can find this spot in the code, in buttons, and we have a hidden button on this page. The CSS class, and this is the old. We've not yet applied the patches to this one, but now you can use row fields tokens within this CSS class. So if you have something like a user ID, you could create a class called button 4 versus button 7, depending on the row. And so that makes it where it's possible to have unique buttons. So simply installing that hotfix would make that available. And in the absence of, while we're dealing with it, I'll go ahead and install that hotfix and just show the difference. I'm not going to change the contribution, but at least we can see it in action. You can see the new help text. That'd be exciting, right? But seriously, we can go on talking about anything else. I just wanted to show that these are out there. Did I install these hotfixes? Maybe I did. I'm confused. I thought I. Okay. I remain confused. I don't know what's going on with that. Oh, Mark wants to see the hotfix demo and it's not working. So I guess we'll have to figure out what. All right, let's dig in. So updates overview, we're looking at listings, and I have 52120. I'm gonna make sure.
I thought you had the hotfix installed there. It had the text that said you could use a token.
Okay, I guess I'm just not looking in the right place. Somebody stop me. Oh, my goodness, it does. It says sports tokens. Okay, I was looking for it at the end. Typically, we have it at the end. So I'm trying to read and do two things at once. So yeah, you can, if we look at this data source, I don't have a unique key. This is an odd listing, but yes, it supports tokens. So again, I don't want to fool with Jim's.
So what is the gist there? You can put a token inside a class per row, and it's a unique token per row. Is that what's going on?
Yes. Tell you what.
Okay, well that makes sense.
I think I can avoid breaking what's fine.
Feel free to mess about with mine, because
well, if nothing else, I'll put it back. But so yeah, let's go into edit mode. No.
Yeah, I'd say that lets you do more than just identify the object in a row. You could identify the entire row now that the A class in the row has an ID.
So we've got our grid here, and Jim has a hidden button. I'm going to do a test button here. From a data source perspective, we have user ID as a unique piece of information that's on the row. So I'm going to grab user ID, and on my test button, I'm going to have a class that is going to be called the button user ID, for example. And so when this renders, we inspect the button. We have, this has the button -1 in it. If we were to inspect this row for number 7, we have the button 7. So give you something to target, right?
Yeah, it's as Jim says, it's a massive. It makes everything massively simpler because you can traverse up once you've got a point to access. You can traverse up and down the hierarchy without all the convoluted JavaScript that I was using.
So we'll get rid of my test button just to not complicate, not change.
Did that apply the class just to the button, or was it to all the objects in the row, or the row itself?
It's just to that particular button.
How did it?
You could use jQuery to then go up from there.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
I'll see if I can do a new and improved version in the next few days to go with that.
So Mark, you had indicated excitement about seeing the hotfix process. You want to actually see hotfixes?
Oh, I was looking forward to the one you just demoed. So
Okay.
You've covered it. Thank you.
All right. Cool. I will mention on this call that in our hotfixes, and I really do like the simplified hotfix installer, because you can come in and select all and do this, and it shows the simple ones, the last ones. You can get individual details if you want to see what's included in a hotfix, and you could install a sub hotfix if you want to, and for my purposes, I typically want to install all and stay on the cutting edge. But I want to mention that if you use this install selected hotfixes button, right now we're seeing at the current version here, we're seeing a bug where our loading animation just kind of goes on forever and the screen never clears. So if you happen to do that, don't feel like there's something wrong just in your environment. You can either refresh that screen or open a new window and get to your site, and you'll see that they're all installed. It just doesn't automatically move on, and we're working on it. Make sense? Questions?
So don't wait an hour for the screen to go away.
Correct.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. Yeah, I saw that on mine.
You know how long it takes to recycle your site. Typically, might take a minute, might take 2. Some people I've seen 5 because they have just so much going on and maybe under-resourced server or something like that. But however long it typically takes your site, if it's this particular version, you're just going to want to do a refresh or go to take the URL and go there again, and when it loads, your site's back. Good. What else? I'm going to pick on one of our developers. I see David has snuck in. David, did you happen to see the presentation on Wednesday or the replay for pro coders?
I haven't, and I feel guilty that I have not, because I feel like it's specifically targeted to me, and I need to watch it because I think I love it.
I think you will enjoy it. I don't know that we targeted it to you, but I think it's to your to the pro coder class, and it covers adding a trigger, which I don't know if you've encountered the need for that yet, but I'm sure you watch that 45 minutes and you'll know exactly how to add a trigger to.
Yeah, I know you talked about it last week, and I made a note that I needed to watch that, and it's still on my list. And so it sounds like you've talked about it again this past Wednesday. And my mind started trying to think of ways I could use it when you just started talking about the high level notion of it last week. I think it'll come in pretty handy.
Well, Bogdan did actually build out a trigger that watched for changes in the file system, and then kind of modified it to have more parameters and such. So I think, yeah, I see it very practical, and I suspect you will know exactly what to do with that. Cool. Didn't mean to give you a homework assignment, but I thought, in a geeky way, you might be excited by that. Nobody came with anything this week?
Everything is smooth sailing for everybody.
I was going to throw something at you. In the absence of anything more pressing, it seems relatively trivial, but hey, we've got nothing else to talk about, right? I have a pop-up form that there is a button at the bottom that just says close and reload the page. And when clicked, it just says, please wait. And it does that forever. Under most circumstances, that's what it does. Under one combination of choices on the form, it actually closes and reloads the page. And I am trying to figure out why on all the other cases, it just sits there and waits. And what I have done so far, I'm looking for a tip, something that some rabbit hole to run down, but what I have already done is gone through all the fields on the form and checked to see if there was any validation requirements, and I have eliminated that possibility. So what else can I look at that would cause it to not submit?
Do the fields, you're saying on the pop-up form,
Mm-hmm.
you've checked the validation. Have you tried turning off the validation for the button?
Yes, it is off. And it has been off.
So
Good thought.
Mm-hmm. Have you checked the inspect network to see if there's something that failed? JavaScript?
Yes, but admittedly, I don't know the right place to look to investigate that the correct way.
Yeah. So, I'm an advanced novice at that, so I don't know how much I'll be able to help you. But
or you can do like me and just look for anything red.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, look for.
And then go ask a developer, what the heck does this mean?
That is the extent of my expertise as well.
Yes.
Well, yeah. So that's on the console tab. You can look for red, and that's
on the network tab as well. On the network tab, if something fails, it shows as red in the list. So that's kind of a handy.
But I would say in one of those that doesn't come back from please wait, that it's probably something going to be in one of those two.
So I had that problem because I had the bad SQL statement in a dropdown a couple of weeks ago. That
was the SQL being run on the button that wasn't finishing?
No, the SQL was not in the. It was not, and that's why it took me forever to find it. I had a SQL statement that populated a button and returned a row, or populated a dropdown, but I was doing it out of context, so that when I clicked on the submit, the initialization values on the form no longer were all in context, and I had no default for it, and it caused that symptom where it just was like the submit button didn't fire.
Well, that's actually likely because there's quite a few drop downs, and a number of them have SQL behind it. That is something I can pursue.
And,
And
and
since
the solution that was given to me was to wrap it in quotes. Like I would, when I had a
right,
token in a where clause, to wrap it in quotes, or to put a default in the token name. So.
And
right,
along those lines, and I'm sure you know, Mark, but other people watching, we can add some value. When one of the things, now that we kind of have something to look at, one of the things to do is to simplify the form. So if you export that form so that you can restore it to its state and then start removing things until it works, little trial and error, you'll arrive at the thing that might be broken, and then know where to focus your efforts, unless it just pops to the top.
right. It's good that you say that out loud. That is my technique of last resort, but oftentimes that is where the solution comes to be known.
You said that sometimes it does work.
That's right.
There is a particular set of conditions. So it must be one of the things you change to get that set of conditions that satisfies the system it can submit. So you may not have to go through all the fields. If you've got a lot of drop downs, it may be one of the ones that you're setting that would avoid the problem that Jim was describing. The other technique I've used is to is not having it submit, but to have a message, just do a message screen or even an email that dumps all the values of the fields, so I can see what it's trying to post, and that sometimes identifies where a field you think you'd set is not being set, or you think you'd set it to one thing and it's not set. So that can save you actually having to remove them sometimes.
Yeah, I love that technique. I was a slow learner, but I did learn that technique, and it has helped quite a bit. In this case, I didn't really think of that because I'm actually not submitting anything. Validation is turned off. It doesn't submit anything. It just reloads the page. There's only one action: redirect to portal page. So
I think
yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I just didn't think I'd need to check what was being submitted since nothing's being submitted.
Yeah, I think what happens though is, as Jim says, the Angular application does some checking before it does the thing. So it may, well, that goes back to the console to find the error. But
okay, I'll chase that.
Yeah, we know it works somewhere, so it must be that thing. No, it's an interesting one.
Okay, can you repeat that debugging technique? You lost me there. That sounded very interesting.
Which one, Jim or me?
That was Jim's, the one where he was somehow interrupting the host.
Yeah, oh, sorry, go ahead. You can probably describe it as better.
Oh, actually, I would be paraphrasing what you just said, but he said if you want to test to see what the values are on the form, anywhere on the form, you pop up a message on the submit button, and put the tokens in the message so that you can see what values are being thrown around.
But if you can't get the submit to do something, can you get it even to display the message?
It's a good question.
Yeah, that's a good question. Most of the time I've had success. Typically I can, put the message at the top of the stack, and you can at least get that to run there. And then I wind up moving it down the stack to see more things.
An error message is also pretty handy. the show error message, because that all that does is just put all the information you're putting into a div at the bottom of the page, and the form stays in front of you so that you can make change something and then submit it again. So that's another handy way of doing it.
Does the error message stop the flow of the action stack?
It does.
Yes.
Okay.
So I am undertaking to demonstrate this. Again, we can talk about anything else, but here we go.
Well, the other thing that I've done along those lines, first of all, pretty much every form I build at some point has an error message in there as to trap, to do this process. But the other thing that I do specifically with forms is a lot of times I'll put a temporary field in there to, if I'm doing kind of a staged process, to give me the last update of a particular value before I go on to the next step. And then when it's all working, either delete the field or just hide it, make it a hidden field, so you can kind of see status as you go through the process. And if you use that in a combination with the error message where you're stopping the process at a given point in the stack, you can see the values progress as you go through the stack process.
Mm-hmm.
Good idea.
So in this particular form, I have two fields, and I'm going to use the display error message. One of the things that's very handy is this append all fields. So we have our field values here, and then just to prove kind of that it's stopping, we'll add a redirect to someplace else. First of all, it tells you that it's not going to happen, but send them off somewhere.
I missed what action are you demonstrating? Is that the message or the error message?
So I'm sorry, I'm just demonstrating error message.
Thank you.
So display error message, and I've added all of my fields to the output. And so we have first name and last name, and this is an interesting color scheme that I'm into here. And so it displays it as an error message and stops. And so you can get those intermediate values there. The other technique that I was mentioning is that if you export content of a module, you can always then re-import the content. So if you have a very complex module and you want to hunt and simplify it as much as you can. So I'm going to just dump this in the site root, and I'm going to call it the, of course, I should have renamed it, but besides ABT action form. But anyway, so we export that, and now we can do anything we want with this form. So for example, we'll delete out one of the fields to see what the result of that is. So we can delete it and save. And when we take a look at the form, we can see that it's gone. So Mark could, for example, start getting rid of half of his stuff. And so now, the button still works, but there's no first name field. So we get a first name token, whatever. But once you've used that to whittle it down to what was the offending thing, you can then import content back and go to the same place that you dropped it and get that value, get that file and import it. And now it's going to put it back the way it was so that you can go on with trying to make the actual changes.
That's a great technique. Is that reload module, is that always reliable? I was a little bit tentative about using that in that way because I was worried that maybe it wasn't perfect by any chance.
So within one system, I have found it to be 100% reliable, right? If you export content from this system and try to import it into another system, there are differences having to do with like workflows, or if your actions target, let's say you have an action that says refresh grid, and that's pointing to a grid on this page. When you import it to the other one, it's not going to work right because it's going to be a different grid number, whatever. But within the same system, I found it to be very reliable, and it just overwrites. This is the export content, import content, as compared to we have this export and import on forms, and this can be very handy. But I just want you to understand, when you export a form, it within the form builder, it exports fields and buttons, but it doesn't export your events, and it doesn't export your settings. This is interesting. It came in as material. Everything should be anyway. So this can be handy for moving some fields around, but if you want to do everything using the DNN export and import is handy and reliable. Let's see what happens. That's why that came in at the odd color that it did. Now it's probably not going to be happy because it's not Bootstrap 5. So we'll go to the page and flip this to Bootstrap 5. There, now it's happy. Okay. Good. So debugging techniques. Anyone else have a? Did that answer your question, Jim, about both techniques? And did anybody else have a favorite debugging that they like to do?
Something I sometimes do, if I am, if I think the issue has to do with contextual tokens that are you know, that are saved after initialization, and especially if it's something I need to test as a non-administrative user, sometimes what I'll do is put a static text field into the form that has a condition that looks at a URL parameter like debug or admin or something like that, just true, and then I'll put the tokens that are of concern into that static text field, and then I can log in as a regular user and put that parameter in my URL and see my static text field and so I can see the tokens that are so I can see the contextual data. That's something I've done in the past. It's helped me a lot.
I'm a little confused about that. You're putting a value in the URL or in a static text or both? What was that?
I'm putting a bunch of you know, like session tokens or you know, tokens that get calculated on initialization or some, you know, that are maybe hidden in the form or that sort of thing. I'm putting all those into a static text field, but then I'm putting a condition on the static text field that depends on a very specific URL variable that I know nobody else is going to put in except for me, and then I can go log in as a regular user and put that variable into the URL, and then I can get those values.
Right.
As the regular user to see, okay, so yeah, there's been situations where I'm doubting, okay, what value is actually getting loaded when the regular user is logged in, because it's working for me, but it's not working there, you know, that sort of thing. But this is one of the things I use to help me.
That's a good idea, Patrick.
So just to illustrate, we have a large text called my debugging field that you could put anything in. I'm just going to show it with sample value, but I'm using the get from the URL. I'm using the debug parameter. We could call it anything, but I'm calling it debug. The default is no, we're not debugging, but if somebody sends debug equal Y, this is going to show. So the result of this then is that if an end user browses to your page, they're not going to see the debugging field. But if you know what your secret variable is and provide the right parameter, it makes it visible.
Yeah, good idea.
That's nice.
That's a good suggestion. Thank you. So now in your testing, and you know, whether it happens on your, for example, it might be one of your events, you can load that. And actually, let me grab the ID here so I don't have to worry about messing it up. But we could add a pre-init event that says context create token, and what we're going to create is the my debugging field, and say my user ID is now if I refresh this, because I have debug equals y, ooh, what did I do? Oh, this is pre-init. That's the problem. Wrong place.
Would it be nice if we could move that with a button click? I thought it was just me that needed to move those up and down there.
So because we have debugging on, we get to see it. If we do this, we don't get to see it. And if we say you can do any kind of
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you triggered a thought as you were going through that demo, Dale. You were checking for the existence of the item in the query string. I noticed when Plant and App builds an edit form, it checks for the it checks to see if it's in edit mode, and that's passed through a parameter. It seems like a very thorough test. Like at first it converts the query string parameter into a string, and then it checks to see if it's null or not null and makes it null, and then it checks to see if it exists. It seems very thorough. And I'm wondering is that the way others are doing it? Because it seems like, can't you just say query string value not equal to nothing, meaning quote, quote, double quote, double quote? What are people doing to check to see if a query string parameter exists?
I'll jump in and say that I've in the past I've used the and I'm sure you do use the equals blank method. I think that it's very thorough, and I and I think and I I use that. Sometimes I've found that some values you get it really works especially well if you're dealing with a database value you're checking. So there's various situations where it's useful. I don't know that it necessarily has to be used in that specific situation, but you're right. It is thorough, and I think there's definitely I mean I've had specific instances where just checking for a blank value did not work for me. Using that did.
Right. I'll oftentimes put if I'm expecting a number, I'll put the token equals 0 inside the token brackets, and then I'll check to see if the value is not 0 or is 0.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering, because that seems it's quicker to type, and I don't have to think as hard to create that. But I was just wondering, am I missing some thoroughness that's going to bite me in the something I don't know.
So I don't know specifically, and maybe we could take a look at the low code that gets generated, but the developers tend to be very thorough people, right? So I don't know why they chose some of what they chose to automatically generate, but I suspect they thought it was very thorough.
I wonder if it's like the difference in SQL between empty and null. because you're testing whether it exists, even though it has no value, as opposed to not existing at all.
Yep. So
Yeah, I see your point.
this is a example of something that got auto-generated. Let's take a look there at the code that got.
So under events, yeah.
Yeah. So we start out with setting isEdit set to false, and then.
And that condition there is what you're specifically asking about, right, Mark?
Yes, it looks impressive. And
Yeah.
I wonder if I don't do all that, is it incomplete?
Well, I think to Jim's point, that is the case. It's checking if it's null or white space. So either one of those two things will trigger it.
Yeah.
Is emptiness, like a quote, is that white space? I don't think it is. I think white space would be a space or in there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's see. This is a JavaScript? Is that true? I think this is a JavaScript condition, right? And it looks to me like these guys, like whoever developed this, is very comfortable with doing string as a function. So this is probably what they do in their code all day, and very, very comfortable for them. I would argue that that this construct is just as reliable, because you're providing a value and checking the value. There's no reason that this would. It's just, but it is using a different functionality, string versus comparison. So while we were here, I was just going to point out the get or session instead of. So I was using get to get off the command line. You get content off the command line. But get or session stores it, and this is one I like too, right? So that when you refresh something, when you browse, and this debug is now, because it wasn't earlier in session, but now it is in session. And so if you were to browse away and come back to this page, it's going to remember the old value because it's in session. And so there could be argument, or at least opportunity, to use that. If you want to turn on debugging and have it follow you throughout your application, you've used the same thing, debug equals Y. You don't have to worry about it remaining on your query string. Once you've turned it on, it's going to follow you until you turn it off or lose session. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Haven't used that getter session yet.
Yep. Where did I have that? So getter session, it's documented here in tokens. If a key exists, it'll use it off the command line, but then if it doesn't exist, it'll store it in session, and so it gives preference to if it's on the command line, but we'll also get it automatically. So it's doing two things at once. It's getting it, but it's storing it. And there's variations of that for profile and cookie as well. So those are useful low-code shorthand. Okay. We got 4 minutes left, so we can do that. Oh, and Jerry, we were talking about you earlier. I see you're here now. And I saw your run yesterday. That was crazy. That was beautiful.
Hey, I have a question,
Yes.
if we have time. If you go down to the gear icon in a field in one of the forms, right? You can see, you pick up you'd see UI settings. Click on that if you would. How does one go about getting, so it says generated CSS variables. I'm not familiar with how to actually retrieve them and use them. Maybe that's more than a 3-minute question, but at some point.
I have never looked at this before. I'm going to make a guess that PB color is something that's in your, if you were to do JavaScript, you'd be able to see it. So if we were to do a, let's not do it. Let's do it here on this one, on my form. And is this the same form? Yep, same one here. So we close that out. So we're going to edit our form. We'll add a test button that would be run some executes in JavaScript. I mean, this is just a wild guess, right? So obviously that didn't work. Anybody else have a guess?
Yeah, I've attempted to look around Google and whatnot. Haven't really come up with anything thus far.
Are those 2 dashes in JavaScript like a comment? You're not actually looking at the data variable?
It's a good guess. Let's try. So it might be actually this. Or somebody would put in a request to leave everything open and expanded.
I believe somebody has.
Oh, yes. So we get an alert that's working. So what does this actually say? Generated CSS variables. So they're not necessarily JavaScript. Let's see. Okay. We inspect. All right. HTML, PB color. So if you knew Java, it's here, right? You can see all the colors are here in the HTML across the top. So how do you access JavaScript variables? I don't know.
Well, it's definitely a step in the right direction.
If you move the color selector and press save, do things change colors?
Yes.
And so what it will be setting on that interface, you set the color that is that is referenced by the variables underneath. So if you wanted to, you could say, I would like my text to use PB color or whatever, and it would respect whatever you select in this in the interface.
Right.
So it's like a contextual contextual color setting. So rather than saying red or the hex color, you're giving it a name.
Yeah. So there's color var dash double dash blue. Well, see down the stack right toward the bottom, Dale? Is that how you retrieve it?
Yeah, so you can style your button with
Yeah.
var. So the vars are set and you can style it. So this article would tell you how to do it. And I would say you can grab it from there.
But that will only apply to that particular page, I believe. So
Well,
if you
pages that pages, this is going to, like, once we save this choice, you know, now if we navigate away, the page builder is built to I'm sorry, where did I go here? If we go to customers page, it's going to change the scheme throughout. It does this. If you're using page builder, this mechanism is going to let you change it throughout. So now you'd be able to, if you want to style things, you can use those bars. And I picked a particularly ugly color scheme, but that's pretty normal for me. Okay.
Well, thank you. That helps.
Absolutely. Okay. With that, we've salvaged another edition of the Low Code Campfire. We thank you guys for showing up week by week. It's a good, it was a good hour. We're going to hang around for a few minutes for Afterglow. And so if you have something that you want to, you're welcome to join us and chat for a little bit. All right. Thanks all. See you next week.